Welcome to this video tutorial. My name is Andreas and I will teach you how to use Laravel, what is the best way to get into this framework, the advantages of the latest PHP version, and what is a composer exactly. These and even more topics in this video tutorial. Hit the subscribe button if you do not want to miss the next videos. As PHP is still one of the, I would say one of the worldwide most used development languages when it comes to websites. You see, even my website is built on Laravel and PHP, and I think it has a really nice documentation. And before we get into all the topics, what is Laravel and how to use it, how to get started, we will just hit laravel.com and get the Get Started button, which leads us to the documentation. And why I would say that the documentation is one of the best I've ever seen, because it's structured into topics. Here you can see that. And for example, if we dig deeper into events, then you see even examples. They are really, really well documented. They are updated, and you see even real world examples. So I think it is a really well documented framework, and it has a large ecosystem. You definitely do not have to know all of them, because sometimes it's even more for corporate reason, or for a cashier is something which management of subscriptions with Stripe and Paddle and even more. But you do not have to know what all of them are to get started into Laravel. The most easy way to get into Laravel is using PHP Composer. And if you haven't installed Composer on your computer, then go to getcomposer.org and hit the Getting Started again. But how can you check if Composer is installed on your computer? Just hit Terminal, and this is equal in Windows. It is the same like in Mac OS or here in Ubuntu. And I have a freshly set up Ubuntu environment. So when I do PHP -v, then you see I even haven't installed PHP, which is pretty easy when you just hit sudo apt install PHP 8.1 CLI, for example, because that is what we need to have Composer installed. I will skip the installation part. This can, depending on your internet connection, take some minutes. Now we have the CLI installed, which comes with PHP -v. If you want to use PHP with Ubuntu, for example, then just Google Ubuntu installation on PHP installation on Ubuntu 22, for example, and then you see, for example, DigitalOcean has a really nice installation on how to install the whole tech stack here. And they are explaining it from the beginning. And you see when we just skip the cookie message, and then you see Apache installation, blah, 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 and so on. And then you see the interesting part, which is about PHP. And it is apt install PHP. And you have to use, you just can use this command here, for example, to get started. And I would say it's a pretty good thing to install everything you need. For example, here we have the libapache mod, which is which enables Apache, the web server, to host your website. And we need the MySQL driver for PHP. And then when everything is fine, then you have PHP 8.1 or the latest version on your terminal. And you see, everything works fine. So we are probably ready to install Composer. And PHP is the development language for developing websites, web apps, and APIs. And it is the language you need when you want to run Laravel. So if you aren't familiar with PHP object-oriented developing, then maybe get into this topic a little bit deeper, because I think it's really important to know the basic concepts behind OOP before starting Laravel. And it's pretty common to learn object-oriented development before you start learning a framework. Not because the framework is hard to learn, but you need to understand the concepts behind to be a better developer on the time. Yeah, but we see how to install it. You have separate ways to install Composer. And Composer, what is it exactly? It's if you see here, a tool for dependency management in PHP. And we hit apt install. So the command was sudo apt install, and apt is a package manager for Linux and all packages you can install on your operating system. But Composer is a dependency management tool for PHP. So that means if you want to use third-party packages, like Laravel is one, obviously, then it allows you to just make a require statement, and it make the install and version control everything for you. But they say it's not a package manager in the same sense as apt. Yes, both deal with packages or libraries, but it managed them on a peer project basis, installing them in a directory inside the project. That means when we just start with it, then you see there are some files you need, but we come to this later. How to install Composer on your system depends on which system you are. You see it like here, local installation and a global installation. You need to start with a local installation here and then hit the download page. So this is an installer. This is depending on PHP. And when we copy the whole code block here, what does it do exactly? Well, PHP is the basic interpreter running, or the basic environment running the installer. And when we just open the installer, then you see the file will be downloaded, and it is called Composer Setup. Then a file hash checks if the setup PHP file, if everything is fine. So when the hash is equal, then everything is okay. Afterwards, it is running the Composer setup, and when everything is finished, then it is unlinking the setup file, and we have a Composer PHAR file in my current directory. And it's, we can just change to our home directory and run the whole code block in our command line. Then we see that there's a new file which is called Composer PHAR. And this is a local installation. So when we hit back to Composer, when the getting started introduction, then we see that this the downloader and the local installation, everything is fine. It is the Composer PHAR file. And then we are ready to run Composer. So when we hit PHP and open the Composer PHAR script file, then you see there are available commands. Then it says welcome Composer version. That may differ from yours depending on when you're watching this video. And then you see all the available commands, like, for example, initialize, also init, or require or remove. So, but when you want to use Composer on every project, in every directory you are in on your operating system, just hitting Composer as a command, then do not make the mistake installing Composer as sudo apt. So just move the file we have downloaded right now and move it to, for example, user local bin Composer. We have here information. If the above fails due permissions, you may need to run it again with sudo. This means when we hit the command and it says it cannot move the file, then we have a permission denied, because we are not a sudo user, or we do not have the rights to move it into our user directory. On some versions of Mac OS, the user directory does not exist by default, so that means no such file or directory. Then you have to create it manually before proceeding, and maybe you check that before you run the command. And the path environment information, this is more or less for Windows. Then we have here information on how to put it onto your Windows path variable. But Mac and Ubuntu does also have a path environment, and you need to have the binary, the user binary and the user local binary directories in your path to be able to run a script. But to have more information, just click the Wikipedia article and read it. On Windows, it's even more simple. You just download and run the Composer setup, and which will install the latest Composer version. But you have to close your current terminal. But okay, then we do a sudo, and it is moving the file and it's renaming the file, so it is in the folder user local bin. And if we have hit now just Composer, it will, or it should automatically bring the same available commands we had before. Otherwise, if it's not the case, you will just have to check your path environment. And if you want to check which composer you use, then just type which and space composer, and then you see that it's in user local bin composer. And now Laravel installation says that we can create a project depending on Composer. And this is your first Laravel project. That means we have the dependency or the project dependency manager Composer here. We have the create project command. And what project do we want to install? We want to install Laravel/Laravel. This command exists more or less than, I think, version 2 or 4 of Laravel, and it hasn't changed over the years. So this is it stays the same. You do not have to use the Laravel installer, the global one. If you are used to this commands, you do not have to install the global Laravel installer. And the Laravel installer itself is just a PHP script or a short form for the Composer create project stuff. But it's just easier to remember because it's Laravel space new space and how your app is called. But we will do Composer space create minus project and Laravel/Laravel. And then we will call our project, for example, 01_hello_world. And project name is, what is it exactly? It's the name of the folder we have here. And then it is downloading Laravel. It's installing Laravel. It's extracting Laravel. It's creating a new project in this directory, and afterwards some checks like file exist and it's creating an environment file from the .env file. But this is all stuff we do not need to we don't need to know now. It could be that your requirements on the system could not be resolved to an installable set of packages. This is this could be the case when you have a freshly installed PHP. If you do not see this error, then you may skip the next few minutes. But if this error message is appearing, then there are a few things to do. Because what is it saying? As Composer is a dependency manager, you see that it has some requirements, and it requires, for example, this Laravel Pint. It's a package, and this requires ext. That's an extension for PHP, ext, and then XML. So it says it is missing from your system. Install or enable PHP's XML extension. And how to install the PHP XML extension. It is really, really simple if you want to install PHP extensions afterwards, if you haven't them on your system. This applies to Ubuntu or other Linux systems. Please hit Google if you are if some of the extensions are missing on your system. But if you want to install it, then it's pretty easy to use, for example, sudo apt-get and then install, or just apt, and then PHP and the version, which may be 8.1 or 8.2 or 3 or 4, depending on when you're watching the video, minus, and then the package name. So in our case, it's XML, for example, because the extension is called XML. You see it all the extensions here you have in your ini file. And if we want to install XML and then hit enter, then all the packages were installed by apt, and also other packages you should have on your system. So now we have to remove the previously created folder, because the folder is empty. The installation wasn't successful, so we once create the project again, and if the error appears again with another extension, then you just hit the same command again until it works. But let me tell you one thing. It is there is a command which combines everything you need. For example, if you do sudo apt get install and then -y for hitting yes for all questions you were asked during the process, then we just install, for example, 8.1 common. And we will install 8.1 MySQL, but we have that already. We will install 8.1 zip, because zip is needed by Composer or by Laravel, for example. Also GD, which is graphical. Then the MB string, which is used to manage non-ASCII strings. We also have CRLL. This is a library for doing HTTP requests in PHP. We also have XML, but we have installed that already. And last but not least, we also need to have a BC math for precision float or something like that. And when you hit enter and entering your password, it is automatically installing the latest version and everything you need. And this may take a while, for example, some minutes. And then you are ready to create the project. It could be that the folder Hello World is present, but it's more or less empty, and you need to do a Composer update again because the installation wasn't successfully. And then you see it is downloading all the latest packages, and that's a command you can hit over the times if you want to get the latest versions of your dependencies in your project. When everything is ready, we just enter PHP Artisan, and if you see, then Artisan is a executable file in your project. We hit PHP Artisan and then have a look if all the commands are present. This is the Laravel framework, and Artisan is a tool, a small tool, which is really powerful. You see, it can control the cache of your application. It can control the database. It also can make great things like models, policies, resources, and all the other things, dealing with migrations, models, and all the other things. But we hit PHP Artisan serve, and then you see that a server is running on it, depending on your system, maybe another IP address you have there. And then it could be that you see this mistake, but then you just hit here generate app key, which is just calling another Artisan command. And then you see that the application key will be set. An application key is set in our environment. So when we just open the environment file, then you see here the app key. And this is the most important lesson you have to learn, because the app key should differ or should be different on every system you use, because it's the hash value or the value which will crypt which will hash the database values, like passwords or something. And if you change the app key, then previous users aren't able to sign in because the password won't match with the password in the database. But now, if we hit the, if we have fixed all the issues, as I said, it could be that you haven't seen any of them. Then you see a beautiful Laravel with the current version you're using, with the PHP version you're using, and which is linking the documentation, Laracast, Laravel News, and the vibrant ecosystem. So there have you a fresh installation of Laravel, and you have a development server, and everything is now ready for starting development. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Otherwise, we will see us in the next video, and then we will get into authentication, into front-end development, and we will get even deeper into Laravel. Hit the subscribe button, and if you like the video, then thumbs up. And as I said, if you have questions, then leave a comment below. And otherwise, we'll see us in the next video.